Hi there, Scorpio, Sun and Rising. Welcome to your October 2020 Astro Transits. It's Raina here. So, as this month begins, the Sun is in Libra, and that is your 12th house. On the 22nd is when the Sun goes into your sign. And so, for the first few weeks of the month, you may be in hermit mode. Not that Scorpios are necessarily ever all that into large gatherings. But some of you probably are. I mean, we have to look at other factors. You may have inner planets in Libra that make you more of a social butterfly as well. But on the first day and the last day, we have full moons. So that is pretty cool. And I think you're going to enjoy the full moon on the 31st on Halloween, because that's when that's probably one of your favorite holidays, a lot of Scorpio people. Sometimes I see people who kind of are gothic, they're goth, and they like, a woman who has blonde hair and she dyes it black. She might have Scorpio sun or Venus in Scorpio, Scorpio rising perhaps, and loves that kind of a dark look, wearing black clothing, getting married on Halloween because they love that kind of look so much. So, decorating everything with cobwebs or who knows. So that might be a great time to get married, actually, if you're into that kind of thing. So on the first of the month, we have a full moon at 9 degrees of Aries. And for Scorpios, it depends on when you're born, because, this is a general forecast. So I'm trying to keep the new and full moons faithful to where it will actually fall in your chart. And for those of you who are born from 10 to 29 degrees of Scorpio, this full moon is likely to fall in your fifth house of romance and creativity. The fifth house is a house of pleasure. Scorpio being a water sign, and this being a full moon, this could, because I think of the water signs. I think I read this, that they're the most fertile signs. So the fifth house is the house of conceiving children. So enough said on that front. But it's also the house of love, and the full moon can be about self-discovery or, just discovery itself. So you may be realizing that the person you're dating is the one for you, and you want to make a more serious commitment to this person. So that could be like popping the question or something like that. For some relationships that have run their course, you might realize it at that point. Perhaps you find out some secret about that person that makes you want to just cut it off. An artist can have a creative idea, maybe finishing an art project. This could be putting the final preparations on a business that you're trying to launch. And for the rest of you, so that would be those in the first 9 degrees of Aries, this is actually going to fall in your 6th house. So the 6th house is the house of work, daily routines, which a lot of people probably are like, what? And your health. So health matters coming to your attention, or for some of you, when I say your daily routine, we all have basic routines. Maybe, somebody like me with Neptune in my natal chart in the 6th house, it's a little bit more haphazard. But for a lot of you, especially being Scorpios, you may have a very fixed routine. And so how that can transpire is that you do things very in a very like organized fashion. The sixth house can be about organization of your life, but perhaps you're having a change in your work environment, because of this shutdown. People have been at home, but they may have still been working for a company, and then they are going back into the workplace. That's a totally different type of schedule. So you might be doing things on that level. So, what else? For those who are in the rest of those degrees, so let me try to think about this. Yeah, so those I mentioned both. On the 2nd, Venus goes into Virgo, and this for you is a friendly angle, a sextile. This is your 11th house of hopes and wishes. So maybe Venus can bring love. The 11th house can be your friendships. Perhaps there are some friendships that you are kind of like nourishing at this time. An example would be you're going back into the workplace and now you're starting to kind of get your life more back to normal, where you are socializing. Your restaurant is opening up and you're going there and you're just doing more what you normally would do. You kind of had that hermit mode period, and even before that, you might have just been kind of keeping more to yourself, and now you're calling up your friends and doing things. Also, Venus can bring love, and so that could be meeting somebody through your friends. The 11th house is also the house of your hopes and wishes, what you aspire to achieve. And I think it's especially aside from your career objectives. So maybe you've always wanted to own your own home or have, own your own land so you could build a home or something in the future. And you get the money so that you're able to do that. Venus can bring money in a particular house. On the 4th, Pluto goes direct. That Pluto is one of your rulers along with Mars, and this is at 22 degrees of Capricorn. So this is another sextile to you from the other direction. This is the 3rd house. So Pluto has been in your 3rd house for many years now, and not that you need more penetrative insight. Some of you also have Mercury in Scorpio, and that is like, having Mercury in Scorpio, having this Pluto transit in the 3rd house, because the 3rd house is Mercury. But you may have been thinking about something specifically related to some aspect of yourself that you are trying to figure out. Maybe you have been in therapy. Pluto retrograde or Pluto direct, it's still going to be very digging. And the mind is engaged here. So there is a deepening. Maybe you were re-exploring a certain occult topic. So perhaps for a while you let go of the tarot, and now you've been doing that, and or you are going to start doing it again. Also, the 3rd house can be your siblings. So if you had sibling rivalry growing up, some kind of power struggles with siblings, these kinds of things can really be made aware to you. And for better or worse, if it's something from childhood, you might heal it. On the 13th, Mercury goes retrograde at 11 degrees of Scorpio. So in your sign, going back into Libra, back into that 12th house. So the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, both getting activated during the next few weeks. Why? Because the first house is the house of the self, rethinking something about the way that you carry yourself, the way that you communicate to others, which becomes your the way that you're perceived, especially if this is Scorpio rising. This is your image. And how does that come from? The 12th house can be even like past life influences or the unconscious mind, the psyche at a very deep level. Sometimes people are very, I'm I was looking for a word that meant like scorpionic, but maybe that's the best word in terms of the way that they communicate, where they kind of sting other people because they're like a wounded dog who, when somebody reaches out to touch them, they attack. And they're doing this as a way to fend off their, extreme vulnerability. And that kind of thing may be understandable based on certain experiences that people have had that have been kind of traumatic or what have you, but they may alienate the person from others. When you have that kind of speech, other people may be afraid to deal with you because you're so cutting and you're just so they feel a sense, or maybe you expose them because you're so perceptive that you're using your gift of psychoanalysis almost as a weapon for people that have not really explored that within themselves, and they're very vulnerable. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, it can play out in different ways. Some some Scorpio sun signs may have Mercury in Libra, and they have this kind of dichotomy, if you will, between a very penetrative, almost ruthless demeanor and a very slick-tongued style of communication. And that can be something that they, when they do get out their hostility, it's covert hostility. So communication is a very big part of our lives, whether we know it or not. That's why it's kind of funny. I have videos up for all the Mercury signs, in your natal chart. And so you can check that out if you know what sign your Mercury is in. And it's never going to be too far from the sun. So it's either in Libra, in Scorpio, or in Sag, if you're a Scorpio sun sign, that is. And it's funny because I kind of felt like I haven't checked lately, but I bet you it doesn't have all that many views compared to other planet and sign videos that I've done. Moon in Scorpio is the top one of those, by the way, for whatever reason, and probably because you guys, Scorpios, whatever your Scorpio is in, you love that kind of deep analysis. So that's right up your alley. So you can look at that, where your Mercury is in, and find out more information about that in general. But so Mercury will go direct in probably an early. Oh yeah, I was just thinking about this when I looked before. I found out it's on the day of the U.S. election when Mercury goes direct. So that'll be very interesting since we've had so much talk about mail-in ballots. Anything that has to do with communication, whether it's something in the mail, whether it is contracts, be aware of that. Just for everybody, that's the case. But for you, it's also regarding looking at yourself and reviewing how you carry yourself, how you communicate yourself, who you are, to others as well. And sometimes we send these signals. I could even say with somebody who has Scorpio rising, when it's in your first house, is what do you communicate by how you dress? This is just something I know. I always have to be controversial and opinionated, but I have Taurus rising and I have the sun in Sagittarius. And so when I was younger and that rising sign was really out in front of me, because a rising sign, really influential, I dressed very provocatively, very sexily, which also I would say with Scorpio rising wouldn't necessarily be showing a lot of flesh like Taurus rising, but maybe seductive in some way. But getting male attention is something that will happen if you are dressing in such a way. That's just how it is. And so I wouldn't be intellectually dishonest enough to complain about that if I chose to dress that way. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that if you are being perceived in a certain way, and I'm really looking at Scorpio rising in particular about this because this is going to be in that first house of the body. Look at how people react to you and how you dress, and what kind of message are you sending. And for people, maybe I was thinking maybe like if you also have Sagittarius in the first house, you may be more like a tomboy, and you may, like, if you're a woman and you're very casual, or just, I shouldn't say tomboy, but just casual. I'm thinking most of you are women, so that's what I meant. I meant wearing a lot of athletic clothing and just like a Sag would wear. And you feel like I'm not being taken seriously because you choose to wear that kind of sporty clothing to work. And look at how other people are dressed. Are they dressed more like they came to work, or they came to play tennis or jog or something like that? And I personally don't like that idea of, having to dress for success. I think that you should wear whatever is comfortable. But that's just if you're going through something like that, you may rethink that message that you're sending. On the 16th, there's a new moon at 23 degrees of Libra. Again, that's going to be depending on where you are in the chart. If you're from 24 to 29 degrees, this is actually going to fall in your 11th house of hopes and wishes. And that can be, just like you had, some of you, like when you have this, just like that Venus in Virgo, this is going to fall in that same house, even though it's in a different sign. It's because of the degree of Libra. So for those of you that this is going to happen, this is really some kind of like new friendships that you're making, or that you have planting seeds for new dreams that you have. Maybe you have the money to do these things and you really want to go for it. It's a hopeful house. The ancient astrologers consider this the luckiest house. So having a new moon here certainly can create like new dreams for you for the future. For the rest of you, this is actually falling in the 12th house. So if you're and to tell you the truth, this is a majority of you. From 0 to 23 degrees of Libra, this is falling in your 12th house. And this is the house of the spiritual past life. you may go to a new spiritual center, start a new spiritual practice, yoga, meditation, things like that. And I have said this before, that because I consider this the womb, I think I might have read that. I thought I made that up, but I probably read it from somewhere long ago, or maybe recently, because of my memory. The circle is eternal. So, when transits are in the 12th house, where do they go next? Do they just drop off the face of the earth? No. Then they go back into the first house. So we can look at the 12th house as a staging area, or the womb. And the new moon in this 12th house, I think, almost is a better time to set your intentions for the coming 12 months, because it gives you that time to incubate them so you can manifest when they are in the first house. You have a running start. And especially for visualization where it's immaterial, the 12th house is not a material house. It's not the material world, it's the spiritual world. So everything comes from the immaterial down to the material, from the seventh chakras, or the upper chakras, where they are in the realm of ideas, into the physical, the 3D, or the first three chakras of the 3D. So being able to envision things when you have a new moon in the 12th house and set your intentions there, and then when you have the new moon next month, which happens to be in your sign of Scorpio, then you're going to have that opportunity to actually implement them, take those necessary actions to make them happen in a material sense. And then on the 31st, we have a full moon on Halloween. How perfect, at 8 degrees of Taurus, your opposite sign. So typically when you have a full moon in your opposite, and it's a blue moon because it's the second new moon in a month. And from what I read, I mean, this was actually a website that dealt with astronomy, not astrology. They were saying that this full moon is going to be visible throughout the world. So I don't know what that means cosmically. I can kind of analyze that and think that maybe it means that this is going to be a global event. Something that all of us, kind of a global awakening, because Uranus is at exact conjunction to this full moon. I think it was exact conjunction, 8 degrees of Aries. I hope I'm right about that. Even if it's 9 degrees, it'll be still in conjunction. And Uranus is a planet. It rules Aquarius. It can deal with, being outside the box, maybe being eccentric, which at the time of the full moon, it already is wackadoodle energy to begin with. So this is just going to add to the party here. Oh, that's a good point too. What day of the week is this going to fall? Because if it falls on a weekend, then heaven help us, because it'll be very festive. Yeah, it's a Saturday night. I mean, let's see, what time is it? It's in the morning, but still, it's on a weekend. Depending on where you live in the world, it might actually fall on a Sunday, but still, the energy will still be there within, probably 48 hours at least. So, yeah, so Uranus is going to be at 8 degrees, exact conjunction. And so this can be a situation where you are experiencing something maybe 0 to 8 degrees of Scorpio, this will fall in your, actually, in that seventh house of committed partnership. So for those of you, those early ones, those ones, the ones that are born in October, the Scorpios born in October, most likely that this is going to occur, or 0 to 8 rising, this will be in that seventh house. Let me make sure about that. Yeah, the seventh house. And so this is that classic situation of the 2 points. So for instance, at the time of a full moon, the sun is at an exact opposition. So the sun is at 8 degrees of Scorpio in the first house of the self. So what needs are you honoring, looking at that partner and saying, I want to, there's a polarity here. Something has to give, we can't have everything that we want. Maybe you are seeing that you don't have to give up who you are to be part of this relationship. For some of you, you may realize that you have been dishonoring yourself and the relationship. This could be, honestly, because of Uranus being in conjunction like this, for a Scorpio person who may have a hard time breaking up with people, this could be one of those things, and this is the marriage house. This is not dating. This is like a committed relationship where you can just, maybe something has been dragging along for years and you know that you need to, get over this relationship, and you can go, bam, it's done. And you don't even have to feel that sense of, it's like being liberated from bondage. Yeah, I really feel that this can be highly useful in relationships in many different ways, not just breaking up with somebody, but kind of liberating yourself from the concept of what it means to be in a committed partnership. Because Scorpios, I think, suffer so much in relationships, even when they are in them, not when they've broken up, but when they're in the midst of them, because of their own extreme attitudes. Scorpio is infamous for being very obsessive about their partner. Like your opposite sign, Taurus, there is that possessive quality, but it's kind of taken to a new level with Scorpio because it's wanting to possess that person, body, mind, and soul. And the problem is that you would love to merge with your partner and be like, this two-headed monster. And we are individual souls. We have our individual journeys, even when they hook up with being together, at some point in our journey. But that doesn't mean that we own anybody or that we should possess them completely. That other person has a right to their own ideas, their own social circle even. Having their own friendships that they see by themselves and these kinds of things. And the more that people think that they own their partner, the more that they are operating under delusion, and they will likely drive away that person. You may have some insight into this at this time, and that can free you. For the also another thing about this that I think is helpful, that could be going on, is that if you have some kind of a legal matter, that could be the time. Now, maybe you've been married 40 years and you get your divorce papers. And because it's like something that was so long in the making, perhaps you were even living apart from that person. And this is just like the legal declaration. But it's almost with that Uranian influence that you feel like you're sprung out of jail. So that sense of freedom as it relates to relationships can be apparent, but like I said, it could be something else that is something positive, where you get married to somebody and you feel this sense of freedom because that person is in alignment with what your values are, and you feel like you have this united front. For those of you who are from 9 to 29 degrees of Scorpio, this is actually falling in your 6th house, which is the house of work. Now, you could walk off the job and and you never even were planning on doing so, because it's just like you just have enough. That's kind of what Uranus, it can be very sudden, very surprising, some kind of a development. That's why I say, just for the United States, here we have a Mercury retrograde and a full moon 3 days before the election that is in conjunction with Uranus. And the Mercury retrograde is in Scorpio, and Scorpio can bring out secrets, and the full moon can bring out secrets, so it's a doozy. But another thing that can happen for those of you in the 6th house is something related to your health, where you maybe you do let go of some kind of addiction. Usually I don't talk about the 6th house with addiction, but since general health can be involved here, and Aquarius, like they even say when the moon is in Aquarius, and of course the moon is not going to be, it's going to be in Taurus, but that tends to be a time to break habits because the person can just become very detached. So the fact that Uranus is in conjunction with this full moon, I can see that as being a time when maybe, because Uranus rules Aquarius, where you're able to break some kind of bad habit that affects your health, and so your health is improved. This is also, I think there's some kind of liberating factor here as it relates to work. Maybe for some, this can be, if you have been working in the workplace, you get to work from home, because Uranus can be technology. So maybe you're able to get a promotion and work from home because you don't need to be supervised or something like that. Okay, that's what I have for you, Scorpio. I hope that you enjoyed this. And if you would like a private reading, the link is below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.